Good morning. You're watching Daybreak on Bloomberg Quint Live, and I'm Alex Matthew. First, let's look at the headlines. Asian markets extend gains on the second trading day of 2018 as tech stocks rally on Wall Street. US President Donald Trump takes on Palestine in a series of tweets, threatens to stop all US aid after Palestine disqualified America as a Middle East peace mediator. The government notifies terms for electoral bonds designed to reduce cash donations. The interest-free promissory notes can be encashed by an eligible political party through a designated bank account. And SEBI releases a discussion paper seeking to distinguish between investment advisors and distribution business. Let's head on to the international markets now. And the US stocks have kicked off the new year where they left off in 2017. Tech stocks, which were one of last year's best performers, led the rally in the first session of the year. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq rose to records. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle wraps up all that's happened in the US market.
2018 started off with a bullish bank for stocks in the U.S. The Dow, S&P 500, and the Nasdaq all traded higher. The Dow adding more than 100 points. The S&P 500 finishing higher by more than 0.8%. But it was the Nasdaq, the tech-heavy Nasdaq, that turned out to be the real winner, up 1.5%. Its best day since the end of October. Now, behind that outperformance for the Nasdaq, we're looking at chips and biotech. In fact, those two indexes, the SOX and the Nasdaq Biotech Index, both up 2.5% or more. Now, two of the big chip winners, AMD and Micron, both of these stocks up in a big way. AMD benefiting along with Micron from positive industry trends for the month of November. Plus, AMD was named as a top pick for the first quarter by Bank of America Merrill Lynch. While on the biotech side, we have Insight receiving an upgrade over at RBC ahead of an important study. We also have Biogen trading higher on the annual raising of prices on key products in the month of January. So some real strength there for both the chips and biotech sectors. Now, relative to some of the other big tech names that we often talk about, Apple up 1.8%. Piper has a bullish customer iPhone survey out that investors seem to like quite a bit, plus a rebound from some of the choppiness in the previous week. Plus, the FANG stocks all higher, in particular Netflix up nearly 5% on an upgrade to outperform from Macquarie. The analysts there really think the company is doing very well with its subscription business. And finally, and certainly not least, Bitcoin up as much as 12% at one day on the session, as famed investor Peter Thiel in some ways is backing the cryptocurrency, adding another perhaps degree of legitimacy for the uncertainty between the bulls and the bears on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But on the day, again, Bitcoin up in a big way, up as much as 12%. So overall, 2018 has started off with a bit of a risk-on tone. In New York, Abigail Doolittle, Bloomberg News.
Well, let's head on over live to Hong Kong to Bloomberg's Rosalind Chin for a check on the Asian markets. Morning, Rosalind. Does that positivity extend to Asia as well?
Hi. Indeed, it looks like it will do. That buoyant mood there in the US sort of moving over to Asia as the markets here are open for trade. Now, one exception, of course, Japan, that is still closed for the holidays and until tomorrow. So right now we're looking at markets like South Korea and, of course, Singapore coming online now, as well as the Hang Seng here in Hong Kong and, of course, the Shanghai Composite. Now, if we look at Kospi, for example, we're looking at one particular company, POSCO, which is helping to drive that higher. Now, POSCO right now is up by more than 5%, and that's largely on upgrade from Goldman, saying that sustainable steel capacity cuts in China and rising oil prices should enhance profitability there. So POSCO doing well. Kospi is up by about a fifth of 1% at this hour. Elsewhere in the region, of course, we're looking at China, and China, of course, we saw yesterday property stocks there did perform quite strongly. We shall see how they perform today. On the currencies, though, we saw that there were, broadly speaking, quite strong rallies, especially in the G10 overnight against the US dollar. Right now, though, we're seeing the won that is actually falling for the first time in 6 days, and that is down largely on concern that the government or authorities could intervene. The finance minister yesterday did say that authorities will take steps in the event of drastic volatility in foreign exchange movements. So there's been some movement there from the FX market in anticipation of that. Elsewhere in the region, of course, one of the key events we're looking at, which will affect the region or will be affecting the region is the MiFID II rules coming into place in Europe. Of course, the biggest sort of upheaval, as it were, in regulation that is coming to financial institutions, and that kicks off in Europe. European rules on today, Wednesday, and of course we've seen financial institutions around the world scrambling to try and get their houses in order to deal with that. Back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Rosalind. Let's head over to the Indian market, and for the trade setup for the day, I'm joined by Darshan Mehta and Agam Vakil to tell you both about the trade setup as well as what's happened in the futures and options space. Morning, guys. First to you, Darshan. What's it panning out today? It's positive cues from overseas.
Good morning, Alex. Yes, the US cues were positive. Asia's off to a decent start. The SGX Nifty is indicating a mild positive opening as far as our markets are concerned. It's up almost 12 points. So, and it has moved up from the negative. So, there seems to be a positive traction as far as our markets are concerned. Heavy buying was seen on the ADRs. Most of the ADRs ended with heavy gains. Wipro was up 4%. Tata Motors was up 4%. In fact, all the ADRs ended with a positive bias. So, ICICI, Dr. Reddy's, Vedanta, all these stocks gained significantly in trade. So this is the setup as far as the ADR is concerned. Now, crude is trading muted for the second straight session, but WTI continues to trade above the $60 barrel per mark. There seems to be significant amount of stockpile decline in the US, and that is why crude is trading at a near 2-year high. As far as commodity is concerned, mixed close for base metals on the LME. 3 did well, 3 didn't. Lead was the one that rallied significantly. Zinc was up 1%. Tin was absolutely flat. And what didn't do well, nickel was down 1%. Copper and aluminium were also down in trade. So mixed cues coming in from the base metals on the LME. It's a muted start for commodities in China. Steel is up almost 0.6%. Copper and aluminium are down almost 0.2%. But the last time I checked, they have managed to drop the losses even higher. Rubber is trading flat in trade. As far as the other gold is concerned, gold is trading for gains of almost for the 9th day. Is gained over 1% overnight. So there seems to be significant amount of traction that's coming into the gold as well. FIs were net buyers to the tune of 522 crores in the cash market. Even DIs were net buyers, but they bought in almost 65 crores in the cash market. Now, what did well? The VIX was up almost 2.5% since the market was rather volatile. Two sectors that didn't do well, the PSU banking index and the real estate index didn't do well. What did well was auto. Auto did extremely well, and the IT pack did well in trade. As far as the Nifty is concerned, it was up just 6 points. The HDFC Bank twins contributed. Tata Motors has been on a roll, so there seems to be a lot of traction that's coming in. Eicher, because of poor numbers, was down in trade. Contributing losses were Bharti Airtel, SBI and L&T. But Agam, what are the FNOQs indicating?
Well, Darshan, as you can see, we really haven't seen too much change in the Nifty, which means that we are looking at further consolidation. When it comes to the Nifty futures, again, very little change in its open interest. Coming to the Nifty Bank, again, you know, in terms of the index, we've seen flat moves, but about 2.5%, 3% added towards open interest, which means coming down to the volatility index, that has moved up by another 2.5%, not too much movement in relation to what we've seen in the previous few days, and the Nifty put call ratio falls to a certain extent at around 1.5 as against 1.56. In terms of changes in open interest, we saw a lot of activity around the 10,400, 500, 600 mark, as you can see here. More writing coming along the 10,600 mark, which means this is becoming a level where you may see resistance going in, and of course 10,400, which means that there's some amount of consolidation building into the system between 10,400 and 10,600. That said, in terms of the stock futures, we have 3 more counters into the band. So GMR Infra, FCI and Reliance Power. And I'm also watching out for some other counters which saw long. So TVS Motor Company up 1%, but it's added now nearly 13% in open interest. And similarly, Tata Elxsi is the other one which has seen fresh longs with another 7.3% added in open interest. So plenty of counters out there moving up substantially, despite the fact that benchmarks have remained more or less where they are. So we'll be watching out for these cues as we move in today as well.
Thanks so much for that, Agam. Let's move on to a check on the rupee in the bond market now. Saloni Dhanuka is here to give you just that. Saloni, the rupee has hit a 2.5-year high against the dollar.
Absolutely, Alex. So tracking gains in the Asian currency markets, the rupee yesterday strengthened for the fourth consecutive session to close at a 2.5-year high at 63.48 levels against the US dollar. Now, dollar unwinding by banks and exporters due to extremely bearish dollar sentiment overseas largely supported the big move in the rupee. Now, remember, it has appreciated by a good 67 paise in the last 4 trading sessions. Also, on the global front, Asian currencies were trading higher with Malaysian ringgit and Singapore dollar gaining the most, while the dollar index slipped below the crucial 92 mark to end 0.4% lower against all its G10 peers. Now, the index closed at its lowest level in over 3 months on the first trading day of 2018. On the flip side, the common currency euro touched a 4-month high against the dollar after manufacturing activity data showed that the eurozone activity grew at the fastest pace in more than 2 decades, and joining the league, the pound rose as much as 0.7% against the dollar yesterday, despite a slowdown in UK manufacturing activity. Now, coming back home, dollar rupee is trading flat in the non-deliverable forward market, which indicates a flat opening for Indian rupee in today's trade. Now, moving on to debt markets, sovereign bonds declined yesterday ahead of the sale of new 10-year benchmark security later this week. According to a Bloomberg report, traders are expecting the new security may trade 15 to 20 basis points lower than the current rate. While talking about the current rate, it ended 5 basis points higher at 7.39%. And lastly, global funds decreased their rupee debt holdings yesterday for the second consecutive session. They reduced their portfolio by nearly 300 crore according to NSDL data, Alex.
Thanks for that, Saloni. Moving on now, the Modi government has notified the terms of issuance of electoral bonds, the cornerstone of which is the effort to weed out cash donations to political parties. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said these bonds will be interest-free instruments like promissory notes that can be encashed by an eligible political party through a designated account.
जो व्यक्ति किसी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी को डोनेशंस देना चाहता है, वो इन इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स को स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया की कुछ नोटिफाइड ब्रांच होगी, उस ब्रांच से खरीद सकता है। खरीदारी के बीच में और इनकैशमेंट के बीच में केवल 15 दिन का समय रखा गया है, और 15 दिन इसलिए रखा गया है कि ये कहीं पैरेलल करेंसी के रूप में न बच जाए, कि कोई भी व्यक्ति अगर किसी राजनीतिक दल को, और केवल राजनीतिक दल वो होंगे ताकि इसमें कोई फर्जी व्यक्ति राजनीतिक दल रजिस्टर करवा के पॉलिटिकल पार्टी ना बना पाए, जो रजिस्टर्ड होंगे इलेक्शन कमीशन के साथ और जिनको पिछले चुनाव में कम से कम 1% वोट मिलना चाहिए ताकि कुछ ना कुछ उनकी फॉलोइंग हो, वही एलिजिबल होंगे। हर राजनीतिक दल को एक नोटिफाइड बैंक अकाउंट देना पड़ेगा चुनाव आयोग को, और ये इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड्स केवल उसी बैंक अकाउंट में इनकैश हो पाएंगे।
Now, Finance Minister Jaitley defended the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Amendment Ordinance in the Rajya Sabha, following which the House passed the bill. The amendments seek to keep defaulting promoters out of the resolution process of insolvent companies. Jaitley said that if the same set of people who led to the failure of companies come back to management, nothing would change except for the creditors taking a haircut. He also said that the ordinance does not force the creditor to accept any bid, and said that Section 30 allows the creditors to reject a non-viable bid. Jaitley was responding to criticism by former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. The Congress leader said that the current regime would lead to companies being sold in bits and pieces. Here's a gist of that IBC debate in the upper house.
The ordinance and the bill that replaces the ordinance throws up some more anomalies, and I'm pretty sure that sooner than later the government would have to come back to the House to remove those anomalies. Somewhere in the course of drafting, the amending bill has not become over-inclusive and may in fact become counterproductive to the objective going through the insolvency resolution process.
The tenure of prohibition must be currently on.
The ordinance was a little too wide, that if you have once been prohibited, you will lifelong be prohibited. That we have changed, and I think the spirit of what Mr. Chidambaram tried to suggest has been captured by making this particular change itself. With regard to the corporate guarantors, the clause H is that you have given a guarantee in a case, not any guarantee, in a case where an insolvency petition has already been admitted. So you are already before the NCLT in another insolvency court. So you are facing an insolvency proceeding yourself before the tribunal, and therefore you start bidding either for the same company or for another company. Now, would we allow people with such questionable credentials to come in? Let us see the experience of these 12 companies, which in the first instance have now come up before the board. And in any case, there is a corresponding amendment to Section 30, which has also been made, that the Committee of Creditors is not bound to accept any and every bid.
Well, let's shift focus now to the commodity space, and we took you through some of the updates, but Jayesh Khilnani joins in with all the details. Jayesh, starting with precious metals.
Morning, Alex. Yes, precious metals have started on a strong note in 2018. So gold has extended its rally to 9 days now, which is the longest streak that it has seen since mid of 2011. Now, what has aided to the growth is the dollar index, which has slipped below the 92 mark and slipped about 9 to 10% last year. Moving on to the base metal space, the index itself closed marginally lower, about 0.2% in the red. However, the RSI, which is the relative strength index, that has climbed above the 70 mark, which indicates that base metals could be overbought. As far as individual base metals are concerned, copper slipped after the longest winning streak it had since 1988 and ended about 0.5% lower. Lead was the top gainer, which climbed more than 3%, while aluminium and nickel slipped in trade. Zinc was up almost 1% and was up about 8 days in a row. As far as oil prices are concerned, we're seeing some stability come about for WTI near the 60.5 mark. Also, the inventory level that we are expecting is expected to fall as much as 5 million barrels for last week.
Thanks for that, Jayesh. On to the stock of the day now, and Titan has come out with its third quarter forecast. Nikki Chandani is here to decode all of those details.
Morning, Alex. Clearly, the stock of the day today is Titan Company because of the business update, Q3 business update that the company has come up with. It says that the retail growth in Q3 is pretty much in line with what the management was expecting, and this is despite the advancement of the share sales that we've seen in the previous quarter. Main contributor is obviously the jewelry segment. That's a double-digit growth that we're looking in for this business, and part of this is attributed to the new collection, the Padmavati collection, which is working well in the favor of this segment, at least for this quarter. There have been two new product launches, be it in terms of Glitterati and Aveer, which have come up during this quarter. Next update we have for this company is the watches division. There was a good show, and it has been a good festival and a seasonal quarter for the company. End of the season sale towards the end of the quarter has led to the boost in sales, and in this segment too, the company has launched two landmark products, which in the women category, which has led to a good growth. Third in the list, we have the eyewear division, the third division. There, relatively, the prescription eye business has continued to show a healthy retail growth, but then the sunglass business is what has continued to underperform. If you look at the GST rate, that has been revised to 18% from 28% earlier. And however, but then in the update, it says that it's expected to pick up. The sunglass division sales are expected to pick up in the quarter coming forward. What brokerages have to say, Motilal says that it is no change in forecast, and it maintains a buy rating with a revised target price of 975 per share. Remember, the company, the brokerage had initiated a buy rating on this counter, and it says that consistent, strong YOY growth in jewelry point out to the value mitigation that we've seen in this particular segment, the jewelry segment. And JP Morgan on title also says it maintains the overweight rating and revises the target price to 890 from 750, which indicates a potential upside of nearly 6%.
Thanks for that, Nikki. On to a special story that we have for you. The Indian Railways has delayed the listing of its two PSUs, IRFC and IRCTC. Both these companies are facing financial issues. Bhanvi Arora, who filed this report on that update, just watch.
The listing of two railway PSUs, Indian Railway Finance Corporation and Indian Railways Tourism and Catering Services Corporation, is facing delays, and this is because both the companies are facing financial issues. Now this comes in the backdrop of the government's ambitious target of a divestment of PSUs by raising 72,500 crores by FY 17-18. Indian Railways Finance Corporation, which is the financing arm of the Indian Railways, its IPO had to be conducted by November 2017, but this has been delayed because of deferred tax liability. Now the deferred tax liability of the company is at 55%, whereas it should be 34% maximum. In monetary terms, this is Rupee 6,600 crores currently. Now the railways official told us that the railway ministry is closely working with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs to resolve this issue, and it has formed an ICAI recommended panel which has given their recommendations last week. The other railway PSU, which is IRCTC, its IPO is supposed to happen by January 2018. IRCTC is responsible for online booking, ticketing and catering services of the Indian Railways. Now its IPO might also get delayed because it is facing the issue of service charge waivers. Now the railway officials are saying that they need to first resolve these financial issues of these companies and then go ahead with the listing plan.
Now Nikki is back with the stocks in news. Nikki, what do you have for us?
The first one we're tracking is the index heavyweight, that's Reliance Industry. The company has commissioned the world's largest refinery off-gas cracker at Jamnagar, has a capacity of around 1.5 MMTPA. This marks the end of $16 billion refinery and petrochemical expansion that the company is currently witnessing. Second in the list, we have Apar Industry. The company has entered into a JV with PPS Motor and is expected to hold around 40% stake in this JV. The focus of the JV would be to sell lubricants to both state government as well as central government, and it will also be targeting your defense and original equipment makers. Third in the list, we have Orient Green Power. There the company has sold it's going to be divesting 8 of its subsidiary through a promoter company, that is Janati Biopower, for around 49 crore. It's a relatively small amount that we're looking at, given the market capitalization of the company is around 818 odd crore. Gallant is the SEBI has revoked shell company status for this company. Good news coming in for the company, but then bear in mind the fact that the stock has run up already 20% in the previous session. We'll also like to keep an eye out on Eris Lifesciences. It's going to be meeting up a few fund house like PFCL, Alchemy Capital and GC Capital, Lucky Securities on Jan 3rd. In bulk deals, we have the Capri Global Capital, that's the promoter, has actually bought in 0.8% stake in the company for a sum of around 16 odd crore. Reliance Naval, that ILNFL Financial Services has sold around 1.3% stake in the company. And last in the list, we have Ashapura Intimates Fashion. There the promoter has been buying stake as per the insider information on BSE.
Thanks, Nikki. Now Somit Sarkar has the big brokerage call for today. Somit, over to you.
Good morning, Alex. On the big brokerage, first, the one thing that we have is Ventura Securities on Sagar Cements. Now, they have reinitiated coverage on the stock with a buy rating and a target price of 1,715, which suggests a potential upside of 89% over the next 24 months. Now, the brokerage is enthused by the company's smart understanding of the cement cycle, and the cement company is Ventura's favorite bet on the cement growth story in South India. Now, the brokerage is expecting strong revenue growth from Sagar Cements on the back of healthy volume and price growth. Now, they expect expecting the company's revenue to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 30% over FY17 to FY20. Also, the company's strategic capacity expansion and significant cost-saving initiatives will help the company not only lower its freight costs but also boost profitability and EBITDA per ton. Now, they're expecting the EBITDA per ton to grow at a compounded annual growth rate of 20% over FY17 to FY20, and over the same period, they're expecting the volumes and EBITDA to grow at a CAGR of 19% and 43%. On the bottom line front, the brokerage is expecting the company to report a net profit of around 158 crore rupees by financial year 2020 versus a net loss of 4 crore rupees that it reported in the financial year 2017.
Thanks for that, Somit. Now, violent clashes that sparked off during the 200th anniversary of the Bhima-Koregaon battle in Pune spilled over to Mumbai yesterday. The 200th anniversary celebration of the battle triggered protests in Pune, leading to the death of a youth. Now, life in Mumbai was also thrown out of gear as protesters blocked roads, forced shops to shut down and disrupted suburban train services. Instances of stone pelting and hurting a news reporter have also come to light. Meanwhile, Maharashtra Chief Minister has announced a compensation of 10 lakh rupees for the deceased youth and a judicial inquiry into the incident. Now, you'll find all the live market action a short while from now right here on Bloomberg Quint Live. But on the website, there are also several stories that you can read. Here are a couple. The country's onion production is estimated to decline by 4.5% to 21.4 million tons in the current 2017-18 crop year due to lower acreage. That's according to data released by the Agriculture Ministry. Coal India may miss its production target once again this year based on the data on output so far. However, the gap between the target and the actual output is falling. Well, that's all we have for you on Daybreak. All you need to know is up next, so do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.